The rainy evening city was like a blurred watercolor painting. Blurred lights of neon signs, wet umbrellas, puddles reflecting the light of headlights. People hurriedly ran through the streets, trying to hide from the downpour. In the middle of this chaos stood the young journalist Anna, clutching her notebook. She was waiting for a taxi to take her to the place where she would meet the man everyone was talking about, but no one really knew anything about. The task was simple: to interview the mysterious businessman Alex Devereaux, the owner of the legendary corporation. He was called a genius, a recluse, and even a man without a past. There was no public photograph of him, and even in the business world few saw him in person. Anna was more nervous than usual. She had interviewed many famous people before, but something about this situation was different. It was as if she was stepping into the unknown, which was both exciting and frightening. "Anna, are you serious?" The voice of her colleague Tomo sounded from behind. He was holding an umbrella and looking at her with slight skepticism. "This Devereaux is a myth. Are you sure that this is an interview at all, and not another legend?" "Legend or not, if he agreed to an interview, it will be worth every second," Anna answered, not looking up from her notebook. Tomo huffed and shrugged. "Good, but if you don't come back, I'll know you found something more than a story." Anna smiled at his remark, but the words remained in her mind. She didn't even know why she thought that this meeting would change something in her life. When the taxi pulled up, she quickly got inside, and the car drove off in the direction indicated on the invitation letter. The car sped past the cozy neighborhoods of Tokyo until there were only dark trees and empty roads around. The further they drove, the more Anna felt the city dissolve into darkness, leaving her alone with her thoughts. She tried to focus on the questions she had prepared, but a strange sense of familiarity with the place she was heading to did not leave her. Finally, the car stopped in front of a high gate. The driver silently pointed at them without saying a word. The gate was ancient, with metal curls and dark spots of rust. Anna came out and was met by a man in a black cloak. His face was covered by a hood. "Miss Anna?" he asked. She nodded. The man opened the gate without another word and led her through the alley that led to the ancient building. Illuminated only by a few lanterns, the estate looked majestic and mysterious. Its architecture combined European features with Japanese details, which created a strange sense of timelessness. When Anna entered the building, she saw a long corridor lined with portraits that sparkled in the dim light. One of them caught her attention. The painting depicted a young woman in a white dress with a red rose in her hand. She was staring straight ahead, and Anna felt her heart skip a beat. It was almost a copy of her. "Impossible," she thought, but her thoughts were interrupted by a voice. "Welcome," said a male voice from behind. Anna turned to see Alex Devereaux. He didn't look at all like she imagined. His face was young, almost flawless, but deep sadness and cold calculation shone in his eyes. "I'm glad you came," he continued. His voice was calm and soft, but there was something in it that made Anna feel an unusual trepidation. "Thank you for the invitation, Mr. Devereaux," she replied, trying to hide her embarrassment. Alex looked at the portrait she was standing next to. "Do you know who it is?" Anna shook her head. "Her name was Josephine. She was important to me." His voice trailed off for a moment, as if he was remembering something long forgotten. Anna felt her palms getting wet and her heart beating faster. She didn't know what exactly, but this meeting had already changed something in her. Alex invited Anna to the spacious library, where shelves with ancient books stretched to the very ceiling. The fire in the fireplace crackled quietly, illuminating the dark wood of the tables and chairs. Anna felt that this space enveloped her in an atmosphere of mystery. She settled comfortably in one of the soft chairs, holding a notebook in her hands, but she was in no hurry to write anything down. It seemed to her that now the most important thing was to listen, not to ask questions. Alex sat opposite, taking a glass of red wine that was on a small table nearby. He looked relaxed, but his eyes were full of tension, as if he was weighing each word before speaking it out loud. "You asked why I agreed to give this interview," he began, looking into the fire. "I usually avoid such conversations. My business, my reputation are just masks behind which I hide what the world should not see. But sometimes, as you said yourself, some encounters are not accidental." Anna felt the words get stuck in her throat, but she remained calm. "Why did you decide to tell me your story?" she asked, trying to look professional. Alex smiled a little, but his smile was more sad than happy. Maybe it's because your eyes remind me of one person, the person I lost a long time ago. Anna couldn't answer because his words made her heart freeze. I was born in a small French village, Alex began, putting down his glass and lacing his fingers together. It was a time of war. The father went to the front, and the mother was left alone with 3 children. She tried to hold on, but life was unbearable. Anna leaned forward, listening to every word. We were starving, hiding from bombings and trying to survive. My brother and sister did not survive this war. Mother broke down after their deaths. She left me, leaving me alone in an abandoned house. How old were you then? Anna asked quietly. 10, he answered, and his voice barely perceptibly trembled. But that was only the beginning. Alex paused for a moment, as if hesitating to continue. Then he took a deep breath and continued. Strangers picked me up. They said that they would save me, that they would give me food and a roof over my head. But instead, I ended up in an orphanage where children were abused. This place was a real hell. Anna saw his hands tighten slightly, as if the memories were too painful. The only escape from this hell for me was music. There was an old grand piano, broken out of tune, but it was my only friend. I learned to play it myself, listening to sounds that helped me forget the pain. He looked at Anna, his eyes shining with a mixture of sadness and gratitude. Music became my salvation. She gave me hope when there was nothing else left in the world. How did you manage to get out of there? Anna asked, trying to hide the worry in her voice. Alex smiled, but again, that smile was a shadow of joy. I ran away one night. When everyone was asleep, I just ran. Without a plan, without ideas where to go. I just ran until I found myself in another city. There I started playing in the streets, hoping to earn a living. Anna imagined this 10-year-old boy wandering alone in the chaos of the streets. This picture did not fit in her head. But how did you become who you are now? She asked again. Alex sighed. It's a long story, Anna. But the bottom line is that even the darkest paths can lead to light. I met a person who believed in me. She taught me how to make music a survival tool. With her help, I began to build what you see now. Anna wanted to know more, but felt that this was only the tip of the iceberg. His words were honest, but at the same time she understood that Alex had not told her the whole truth. The conversation continued, but Anna already knew that it was more than just an interview. Alex was not an ordinary person. His past was so dark and complicated that the feeling of ordinary familiarity turned into something else. And this something forced her to stay, listen, and try to understand the person whose story was just beginning to unfold before her. Anna couldn't shake the feeling that Alex's story was just beginning. Her professional interest was intertwined with something deeper, almost personal. His stories touched something in her heart, as if she was not hearing someone else's story, but something familiar, something long forgotten. After talking in the library, Alex offered her a walk around the estate. Anna did not object, feeling that every step was closer to the solution. They walked in silence through long corridors lit by antique lamps that cast shadows on the walls. Anna again saw that portrait of a woman with a red rose. She stopped without looking away. You said her name was Josephine, she said. Who is she to you? Alex stopped next to her. His gaze lingered on the portrait. She was my wife, he answered after a long pause. Or maybe the only person who ever really understood me. Anna felt her heart sink. There was so much sadness and tenderness in his voice. I'm sorry if my question seems too personal, she said, trying to tone down her interest. No, Alex said with a small smile. I guess it's time to tell. They sat down on a bench in the great hall, where the ceiling was decorated with ancient frescoes. Alex began to speak, his voice shaking slightly. It was many years ago, in another life, in another world. I was young and completely different. Josephine appeared in my life when I was sure that nothing good would happen to me again. She was the music that revived my soul. Anna listened with bated breath. She had a spirit that I cannot describe. Her laugh could dispel even the darkest thoughts. We were happy. But fate decided that our happiness would not last long. He stopped as if he remembered something painful. Anna noticed how his hands were clenched into fists. Her death was my fault, he said. I could not protect her. What happened? Anna asked, trying not to show her excitement. Fire. Our house was engulfed in flames. I tried to save her, but... His voice trailed off, and he turned away, looking out the window. I have lived with this burden ever since. And no matter what I do, no matter where I am, I always remember her. Her face, her voice. I see her in every reflection, but I can never touch her. Anna felt her heart begin to beat wildly. It seemed to her that she too saw this fire, heard screams, felt the warmth of the flames on her skin. But this is impossible. She never knew Josephine. You said I reminded you of her, Anna said quietly. Alex turned to her. There was more than just sadness in his look. It's more than just a resemblance, he said. You... He stopped, as if he did not dare to continue. What? Anna asked, not hiding her excitement. You remind me not only of Josephine. You remind me of a time when everything was good. Sometimes I think you are her reflection in this world. Anna sighed, trying to comprehend what she had just heard. It's impossible, she said. This is... Have you ever thought that time can repeat itself? That some stories continue over and over even when we don't want them to? His words silenced her. Images flashed through her head. An old house, a man with black hair, screams and flames. She could not explain where these memories came from. Alex got up and walked over to one of the portraits. There are things that cannot be explained. But I think you are not here by chance, Anna. You are part of a story that has not yet ended. Anna felt her heart sink. She knew that this night would change everything, but she still couldn't figure out how. Alex fell silent. His gaze drifted to the fire in the fireplace, and in the silence, one could only hear the soft crackling of wood. Anna waited, not wanting to interrupt his thoughts, until he decided to continue. One night, when everyone was asleep, I decided I couldn't stay in the orphanage any longer. Alex began, not looking at her. I was only 12, but I realized that I would either escape from there now or never. Anna held her breath. She could not imagine how a child dares to leave everything he knows and go into the unknown. I hid the few pieces of bread that I managed to save and climbed over the fence at night. It was simple. They never believed that anyone would dare to escape. He leaned back in his chair, staring off into the distance, as if he were back in that night. I ran until the first star appeared in the sky, running, not knowing where. I was afraid that I would be caught and sent back, and then my life would be over. I ended up in another city. It was Marseilles, a noisy and bustling port. I wandered the streets watching people go about their business as if their lives were so simple. Alex smiled, but it was a sad smile. I was just a child, without money, without a home. He slept on the street, ate what he found, or what someone threw in the garbage. But despite this, I felt free. For the first time in many years, I belonged only to myself. Anna listened with bated breath. His words sounded like a confession, but at the same time like a story of struggle. One day, wandering through the streets, I heard music. It was a man playing the accordion standing on the corner of the square. Its melody seemed so familiar, as if I had heard it in my dreams. I stopped and couldn't look away. He paused as if seeing the scene again before his eyes. He noticed me and smiled. It was the first kind look I'd gotten in a long time. Then I realized, I want to play like him. I started working in the market. He carried boxes, washed floors, did everything for which a few coins could be given. And every time I collected even a little, I returned to that man. Did he teach you? Anna asked, listening with rapt attention. Alex nodded. His name was Henry. He played the accordion for 40 years and was a real master. I told him about the orphanage, about my escape. He just smiled and said, "Music does not need wealth or a house. She will always be with you if you are faithful to her." Anna felt her heart freeze at these words. He started teaching me. He had an old accordion that he gave to me. We played in the streets together, and this money was our salvation. For the first time, I felt that I could create something, that I could be someone. Music has become my refuge, my world. In her, I found what I was always looking for: freedom, expression, meaning. Every tune I played was my story. Anna saw his face change when he said that, as if the memories of those days were both joyful and painful for him. Over time, I started playing in larger venues, in restaurants. People started noticing me. But every time I stood in front of a crowd, I thought about how far I had come from that broken grand piano in the orphanage. Alex fell silent, looking at Anna. His eyes radiated calmness, but Anna felt that he had not told everything. "Your story, it's incredible," she said. "But why did you decide to tell it to me?" Alex looked straight into her eyes. "Because I feel like you're part of that story, even if you don't know it yet." Anna froze, feeling her heart begin to beat wildly. His words sounded like a riddle that she had to solve. She didn't know exactly what he meant, but she was sure of one thing. This story was more important than she could have imagined. Alex opened the veil of the past to her, but behind it, there were even more secrets. Anna understood that this was only the beginning. The night in the library was so quiet that it seemed as if the whole world had stopped to listen to Alex's story. The fire in the fireplace had already begun to die down, but its warmth still remained. Anna sat motionless. Her notebook had long been forgotten on the table. She knew that Alex had not yet told the most important thing. "You said that Henry helped you, but that's only part of the story, right?" Anna broke the silence. Alex nodded slowly, his eyes regaining that deep sadness. "Yes. Henry gave me music, but I was still a child who had nothing. He couldn't give me a home or a future. Someone else did it." Anna felt her curiosity rise. She knew she was about to hear a part of the story that would change the way she thought about Alex. One evening, when Henry and I were playing in one of the central squares of Marseille, I noticed a man. He was not like the others. His clothes were expensive, but his eyes looked tired. He stood and listened to us for a long time, and then he came closer. Alex fell silent, as if he saw the scene before him again. He didn't say anything special, just threw a few coins into the case and left. But something about his look made me remember him. A few days later he returned, and then again. Each time he stood a little longer, listened more attentively. Anna leaned forward, keeping her eyes on Alex. One day he came up to me and said, "You have talent. What are you doing outside?" I replied that I had no other choice. He asked if I wanted to change my life, and I said yes without hesitation. "His name was Etienne Lambert," Alex continued, his voice growing a little warmer. "He was a philanthropist, a person who looked for talented children and helped them. I didn't know why he chose me, but it was the beginning of a new chapter in my life." Alex smiled, and it was a genuine, sincere smile. He took me to his estate. It was the first time I had seen a home that wasn't cold or hungry. He told me I could stay there if I worked on my talent. Anna imagined little Alex, who for the first time in his life felt safe. Etienne was not just kind. He was strict. He made me play for hours, learning the notes, working on each melody until it sounded perfect. Sometimes I thought I couldn't take it, but every time I wanted to give up, he said, "Your music is your key to freedom. Don't let him go." A year after I started studying with Etienne, he organized my first performance. It was a small concert for his friends and colleagues. I remember standing before them, trembling with fear. But as soon as I touched the keys, the fear disappeared. Alex fell silent, a warm glint in his eyes. It was the moment when I first realized that I could achieve something bigger. People applauded, and I saw Etienne smile. It was his victory as much as it was mine. Alex looked at Anna, and his voice became more serious. Etienne often told me that talent alone means nothing. He taught me that the real power of music is its ability to touch people's hearts. "If you can make someone cry or laugh through your music, you can change the world," he said. Anna felt how these words touched her soul, but most importantly, he gave me faith in myself, continued Alex. He was the one who showed me that even the biggest shadows can be defeated if you keep moving forward. Alex fell silent for a moment, as if giving Anna time to process what she heard. "I could never have become who I am without Etienne," he finally said. "He was my savior. But like everything in this life, our paths diverged." "What happened?" Anna asked quietly. Alex looked at her and said, "This is another story that needs to be told as well. But first, I want to know more about you, Anna." Her heart beat faster. It seemed that now their stories were beginning to intertwine, and it frightened her as much as it fascinated her. Alex turned back to the fire, as if the memories of the past were so vivid that he could see them in the flames. His voice became more confident, but still held a hint of nostalgia. When it came time to leave Etienne's estate, I was no longer the child who played the broken piano in the orphanage. I was a young musician who knew I could achieve more. Anna listened carefully, trying to imagine that period of his life. Etienne gave me not only knowledge, but also confidence. He introduced me to people who could open doors to the world of music. But that didn't mean everything was easy. Success always requires sacrifice. My first public performance took place in a small concert hall in Paris. It was something of a pen trial, a small audience, few critics, and even less chance of recognition. But I knew this was my chance. Alex trailed off, his eyes shining. That night, I played as if it was the last time in my life. He smiled at the memory. I remember finishing the last note, and the hall was dead silent. It was the most anxious few seconds of my life. And then they started applauding. No, not to applaud. They stood. It was as if I opened something in their hearts. Anna felt her heart begin to beat faster. "What did you feel?" she asked. "A relief," Alex said with a smile, "but also fear. Because I realized that this path is not the final goal, but only the beginning." After that concert, my name started appearing in newspapers. At first, these were brief mentions, then reviews. But the real breakthrough came when I got an invitation to play at a festival in Salzburg. Anna raised her eyebrows in surprise. "It is one of the most prestigious music festivals, right?" Alex nodded. "That's right. I was nobody. A young musician with little experience. But they saw something special in me. I played at a festival, and my phone kept ringing after that. Agencies, critics, promoters. Everyone wanted to know who I was." Alex fell silent, his voice a little colder. But success always has its price. The more popular you become, the more you lose. You lose freedom, privacy. People begin to see in you not a person, but a tool, a means to achieve their goals. "Do you regret it?" Anna asked, feeling his words pull her into the depths of his thoughts. Alex thought, "I don't regret it. But sometimes I think it could be done differently. Maybe stay in the shadows, play only for those who value music, not reputation. But there are moments you will never forget," he continued. "For example, when I played at La Scala, it was my first performance on the world stage. The hall was filled to the brim. People came from different countries to hear me." He paused as if savoring the memory. I remember standing backstage and looking at myself in the mirror. I thought, "What am I doing here? I am a child from an orphanage. I should never have been here." But as soon as I stepped on stage, all those thoughts disappeared. Anna imagined this picture. Alex, illuminated by the light of the soffits, alone on the stage, in front of a crowd expecting a miracle. It was one of the best nights of my life. But after him, I realized that music can be not only a blessing, but also a curse. Alex turned to Anna. "Popularity brought me everything I dreamed of. Recognition, money, freedom. But at the same time, she took away something important, something I'm still trying to find." Anna looked at him, feeling that there was another story hidden behind his words. "What exactly have you lost?" she asked. Alex looked into her eyes, and his answer was simple but mysterious. Himself. Anna realized that Alex was not just telling her his story. He leads her to something greater, something related to herself. She felt that this evening would change her life, but she did not know exactly how. Alex's story wasn't over yet, and now she has become a part of it. The night deepened, but Anna could not tear herself away from Alex's story. His story was like a symphony, complex, emotional, and at the same time painfully beautiful. But she felt something indescribable, hidden in his every word. "You say that popularity has taken away yourself," she began, trying to understand the deeper meaning. "What did you mean?" Alex smiled, but his smile was more of a mask than an expression of joy. "Fame is a fire that attracts. People come to you, seek you, admire you," he said, looking down at his hands, which seemed to hold invisible notes. "But the more people around, the more lonely you feel. At first glance, it seems that you have everything," he continued. "But in fact, fame distances you from the world. People don't see you as a person. They see in you an ideal, a dream, a symbol." He looked at Anna, and there was pain in his eyes. "And you start to lose yourself. You forget who you were before. What made you play? What made you happy?" Anna felt her heart sink. His words rang true, but there was more to them than just disappointment. "My music has always been my salvation," Alex continued, leaning forward a little. "But the more I played, the more I felt that music became a barrier between me and the world." Anna leaned closer, listening to his every word. "When I stood on the stage, I saw thousands of faces. They applauded, admired, shouted my name. But when I left the stage and found myself alone in my room, I realized that there was no one in this crowd who really knew me." "You didn't have any friends?" Anna asked, trying to understand the depth of his loneliness. "Friends?" Alex smiled slightly. "People always want to be close to those who are successful, but would they stay if everything disappeared? I doubt it. What hurts the most is that fame doesn't just change you," he said. "It changes your relationship with others. The people you love begin to drift away. They no longer see you as what you were to them before." His voice trailed off, and Anna saw him staring into the fire. "I lost people who meant everything to me. I lost the opportunity to have real intimacy." Anna remained silent, feeling that her questions might break this fragile moment. "My soul was like a big, empty hall," Alex continued. "There was music playing in it, but there was no one who could actually hear it. Sometimes I dreamed of going back to the time when I played on the streets of Marseille. It was a hard life, but it was real. I played for people who knew pain and joy. Their smiles were honest. Their coins were sincere." His voice trembled slightly. "Everything seems fake now. Every word, every look. And most of all, I miss the feeling when you can be yourself and not be afraid that you will be judged." Anna felt his words touch her own soul. She understood that behind all his achievements and recognition, there was a deep emptiness. Alex looked at Anna, and his gaze was filled with something that was hard to describe in words. "Do you know what it means to be alone, Anna?" he asked. She nodded, not trusting her voice. "Then you know why I am telling you this. You make me remember who I was before I became who I am." Her heart froze. She felt that these words applied not only to him, but also to herself. Their stories began to intertwine like threads in a single canvas, and she did not yet know what it would lead to. The night was deep, but Anna could not tear herself away from Alex's story. He looked as if he had just lifted a heavy burden by sharing his pain. However, there was a new tinge in his eyes, something akin to anxiety and perhaps anticipation. "You said losing touch with people was the most painful thing for you," Anna began. "But is everyone you knew gone forever?" Alex thought, his gaze resting somewhere in the darkness outside the room. "No, not all of them," he answered after a pause. "There is one person whose trail I could not lose, no matter how hard I tried." Anna leaned forward with interest. "Who is this?" Alex looked at her, his eyes full of mixed emotions. "His name was Raoul. We grew up together in an orphanage. He was the only one who kept me afloat during those years. I always thought I would never see him again, but fate had other plans. Raoul was 2 years older than me," Alex began. "He was a real leader among the children in the orphanage. Although our lives were difficult, he always found a way to make us laugh. His jokes, his stories, all this was our only light in the darkness." Anna saw Alex's face light up with a faint smile for a moment. "He protected me. When one of the teachers was too cruel, Raoul always stood by, even if it meant punishment for him." Alex paused, his voice deepening. "When I ran away, I didn't say goodbye to him. I couldn't. That would be too difficult. I always thought that he stayed there in that hell, and that I would never know what happened to him again. Many years later, when I was already a musician, I was invited to perform at a charity evening in Paris. It was a lavish event full of rich and powerful people. I felt like a stranger among them, but I knew it was my duty." Anna noticed Alex clenching his hands as if trying to collect his thoughts. "When the concert ended, a man approached me. He was dressed simply, even modestly, but his eyes were familiar. At first, I didn't recognize him, and then he said, 'Well, Alex, do you still remember Raoul?'" Anna held her breath. I was shocked. It was really him, my childhood friend. But his eyes no longer shone with the vitality I remembered. He was different. Life left its scars on him. We sat down at the table, and he began to tell how he managed to survive after I ran away. He left the orphanage when he turned 16 and ended up on the street. He worked wherever he could, but life was cruel to him. Alex fell silent, as if the mention of it was too painful. Raoul said that he had heard about me, about my success. He knew I had become a musician, but never dared to get in touch. Why? Anna asked. He said he didn't want to be a burden. He believed that I left him behind to build a better life. Alex looked away, and his voice trailed off. But he didn't understand that I never forgot about him. His laughter, his support, all this stayed with me. I offered him help, Alex said. Money, home, work, everything he could. But he refused. Why? Anna asked, surprised. He said he didn't want to live on my mercy. Raoul was too proud. He said he wanted to find his own way, but promised we would stay in touch. Alex paused, his face serious. We exchanged numbers, and although he lives far away, I sometimes receive letters from him. He still struggles, but I know he is strong. Anna felt that the story about Raoul touched something in her soul. Alex looked at her, and his voice was low but firm. The people we love never leave us completely. They are always a part of us, even if we are far from each other. Anna nodded, feeling that this meeting with Raoul was not only part of Alex's story, but something more. It was a reminder that even in the darkest moments, connecting with those who matter can help find light. Anna listened attentively as Alex talked about his friend Raoul. She couldn't shake the feeling that this story had a deeper meaning, something more than just friendship. Her hunch proved true when Alex suddenly fell silent, staring off into space. His eyes filled with mixed emotions, pain, sadness, and tenderness. Raoul didn't just come back into my life, Alex said quietly. He brought with him a person who changed everything. Anna felt her heart beat faster. Who exactly? Alex looked at her, and there was something in his look that was hard to describe in words. Her name was Elisa. She was his girlfriend. We met on one of those rare days when Raoul invited me to his home, Alex began. She opened the door and I saw her for the first time. His voice grew warmer and his eyes had a faint glint. She was unique. Her laughter filled the room like music. Her eyes had that depth that made you forget about everything else. Anna noticed Alex pause, trying to find the words. She was kind, open, and most importantly, she loved Raoul. It was obvious. At first, I tried to suppress these feelings, Alex admitted. She was my friend's girlfriend, and I had no right to even think about her. But every time we met, I felt these emotions grow stronger. Anna could see how difficult it was for him to talk about it. We spent time together. Me, Raoul, and Elisa. She was a part of his life, but at the same time she was becoming a part of mine. I tried to keep my distance, but it was impossible. Have you told her about your feelings? Anna asked, carefully breaking the silence. Alex shook his head. No. How could I? I had no right to destroy their relationship. Raoul was like a brother to me. But like everything in life, it couldn't stay hidden forever. Once we were alone, Alex continued. Raoul was out on business, and we accidentally started a conversation about life, about what makes us happy. His voice trembled. She looked at me and said, Alex, you always look so strong, but I can see that you are hiding pain. Why don't you allow yourself to be happy? Anna held her breath. At this point, I couldn't hold it in any longer. I confessed my feelings to her. I said that I knew it was wrong, that I understood that she loved Raoul, but I couldn't hide it any longer. She wasn't angry or resentful like I expected, Alex said with a faint smile. She simply said, I knew. Anna raised her eyebrows in surprise. Did she know? Yes, Alex confirmed. She said she felt it, but she didn't want to believe it. She asked me not to say anything to Raoul and promised to keep it between us. Alex fell silent, his eyes focused on the fireplace, where the fire was almost extinguished. I agreed, but it only made things more difficult. Every time I saw them together, my heart sank. Raoul found out months later, Alex said, his voice growing colder. I don't know how, but he felt that something had changed. He didn't ask directly, but his demeanor changed. He became more closed, distant. Alex balled his hands into fists. I realized that I had lost his trust. He was the only person who was always there, and because of my feelings for Elisa, I ruined everything. Anna was silent, not knowing what to say. Raoul stopped writing to me, stopped answering my calls. And even though Elisa didn't say anything, I knew she felt guilty too. Alex looked at Anna, and his eyes were full of pity. "Sometimes the people you love least want your feelings," he said. "And the biggest horror is that these feelings can destroy everything good that you had." Anna felt how these words touched her soul. She understood that this story was not just about love, but about losses that cannot be returned. But she knew Alex's story wasn't over yet. The silence in the room became almost palpable as Alex gathered his thoughts to continue. His gaze was blank, and his voice when he finally spoke was low and full of yearning. "I thought my confession ruined everything. But the truth is that it was just the beginning," he said. "What I couldn't understand then is that feelings are never one-sided." Anna held her breath, sensing she was about to hear something important. "One day, Elisa came to see me when Raoul was not at home," began Alex. She looked nervous, but determined at the same time. Anna leaned closer, listening to his every word. "She said we should talk, that she can no longer be silent." "What did she say?" Anna felt her heart start to beat faster. Alex looked at her, and there was more than just sadness in his eyes. "She admitted that she also feels something more than friendship for me," he said. "But she also said that these feelings did not appear because she stopped loving Raoul. She loved him, but her heart was torn between the two of us." "It was the sweetest and most bittersweet confession I've ever heard," Alex continued. "We both knew it was wrong. But at that moment, I felt happiness for the first time in a long time." Anna listened attentively, understanding how difficult it was for Alex to talk about it. "We began to spend more time together, but always hid from Raoul. It was like a game you always knew you were going to lose. But we could not stop." "Were you together?" Anna asked, afraid to hear the answer. Alex nodded. "Yes, but it was short-lived. Our moments were short, but they were real. I knew it wouldn't last long, but every moment with her seemed endless. Of course, the truth always finds a way out," Alex continued, his voice growing colder. Raoul realized that something was wrong. He didn't know the details, but he began to distance himself from both me and Elisa. Anna felt her heart sink. What happened next? "Elisa and I realized that we could not continue. She couldn't destroy what she had with Raoul, and I couldn't live with the feeling that I was betraying him." He paused, as if remembering the most painful moment. "She told me that we have to stop this, that our feelings have no future. And even though I knew she was right, it broke me." "Elisa stayed with Raoul," Alex said, his voice almost a whisper. "They moved to another city, and I never saw her again." Anna noticed how his hands were shaking a little. "I know it was right, but sometimes when I play the piano, I think of her. About us, about how everything could be." His eyes found Anna's again. "Do you know what it's like to love someone so much that you're willing to lose everything just to make them happy?" Anna could not answer. She felt that this story touched the deepest parts of her soul. Silence filled the room, but the silence said more than any words. Anna understood that this story is not only about love, but also about loss, about sacrifice, about the unfulfilled. Alex leaned back, his face still calm, but his eyes shining with longing for something that could never be returned. After a long pause, Alex continued his story. His voice was soft, but every word was laced with pain and tenderness. "I thought everything was over between us forever," he began. "When Elisa and Raoul moved, I tried to forget her. I immersed myself in music, concerts, tours. But, as it turned out, some ties cannot be broken." Anna listened intently, feeling that the story was approaching something unexpected. "Several years passed," Alex said. "I was in London, preparing for an important speech. It was one of those nights when everything seems routine. Rehearsals, a hotel, another empty room. And then I got a letter. From whom?" Anna asked quietly. "From her," Alex answered, his voice shaking. The letter was short, but every word was permeated with emotions. She wrote that she left Raoul, that she understood that she could no longer live in a lie, and that she wants to see me. Anna held her breath. "What did you do? I didn't know what to think at first," Alex answered. "I was angry. Angry at her, at himself, at the situation. But at the same time, I felt how something that seemed dead for a long time came to life. A week after that letter, she showed up on my doorstep," Alex continued. She looked tired, but there was the same determination in her eyes that I had seen the day she first told me about her feelings. He paused as if trying to find the right words. She said she couldn't hide anymore, that she left everything behind to find me, and that now she wants to be with me, even if it means starting from scratch. Anna saw Alex's eyes light up with warmth for a moment, but the warmth quickly faded. It was like the whole world stopped, Alex said. I felt happiness, pain, sadness, and joy at the same time. But at the same time, I couldn't ignore what it meant. Anna listened attentively, understanding how difficult this moment was for him. I asked her about Raoul, Alex continued. She replied that their relationship had long since become empty, that he knew it too, but neither of them dared to make the first move. He sighed, lowering his head. She said she loved me, and that she loved me all this time. It was as if the whole world stopped, said Alex. I felt happiness, pain, sadness, and joy at the same time. But at the same time, I couldn't ignore what it meant. Anna listened attentively, understanding how difficult this moment was for him. I asked her about Raoul, Alex continued. She replied that their relationship had long since become empty, that he knew it too, but neither of them dared to make the first move. He sighed, lowering his head. She said she loved me, and that she loved me all this time. We decided to give ourselves a chance, Alex said. It was not easy. The world always condemns those who go against the rules, but we were ready to fight for what was between us. Were you happy? Anna asked, sensing that the answer might be ambiguous. Alex thought, yes, we were happy, but it was a different kind of happiness. It was not a fairy tale. It was real life, with its problems, fears, and doubts. But every moment with her was worth everything I went through. But the past will always find a way to catch up with you, Alex added, his voice growing colder. Raoul found out about us. And even though Elisa said it was over between them before she left, he never forgave her or me. Anna saw the shadow of pain reappear on his face. He wrote me a letter, Alex continued. There were no threats or accusations in it, only words that I lost his trust, that he no longer wants anything to do with me. He fell silent, as if those words still hurt him. Elisa and I continued to be together, but that burden never completely went away, Alex said. When you build something on the ruins of the past, these ruins will always remind you of yourself. Anna understood that this story is not only about love, but also about the complexity of choices, about how difficult it is to find a balance between happiness and responsibility. Alex looked at her, his eyes filled with longing. Would I be happier if I had made a different choice? I don't know. But I know one thing for sure. I loved her like no other, and that was the only thing that mattered. Anna felt Alex's words about his love for Elisa leave an invisible trail in the air. His story was like music, beautiful, but filled with pain and doubt. But a new division was beginning in it, which promised something more than just a struggle. You say you were together, she began cautiously. But did it become something more? Alex smiled. His smile was warm, although there was a hint of sadness in it. Yes, we got married. It was one of those moments that stays with you forever. But even that day, I felt that the shadows of our past would always be there. It all started out of the blue, said Alex. We were sitting on the balcony of my house in Paris. It was already late, and the city was shining with lights. She was looking at the Eiffel Tower when I knew I couldn't wait any longer. Anna saw his gaze soften. I said, Elisa, I know our lives are complicated. I know we have more pain behind us than happiness, but I also know that I want to spend the rest of my life with you. Will you be my wife? Anna felt her heart freeze at these words. She was silent at first, Alex continued. Then she looked at me with her deep eyes and said, Yes. It was the most beautiful yes I've ever heard. We decided that our wedding will be small, said Alex. Only a few close friends and relatives. We wanted it to be a day for us, not for the crowd. Anna imagined this moment, a small chapel bathed in candlelight, and Alex waiting for his bride. She was wearing an ivory dress, Alex said with a smile, and she looked as if she had come out of a dream. As she walked towards me, I realized that all the pain, all the doubts and fears were worth this moment. Anna couldn't help but smile. And how did you feel when you said yes to her? She asked. I felt calm, Alex answered. For the first time in a long time, I felt that I was where I should be. "The first months were fabulous," said Alex. "We lived in a small house outside the city, far from the crowds and bustle. I wrote music, and she gardened. It was the life I dreamed of." But his tone changed, and Anna felt that the fairy tale had its flaws. "But the shadows of the past never completely disappear," he continued. "Raoul did not forgive us. And although we did not receive direct accusations from him, his silence was worse than any words. Sometimes I could see Elisa thinking," Alex said. "She was looking into the distance, and I knew what she was thinking about him. I never asked what exactly, but it always remained between us." Anna saw him look down, as if remembering something painful. "One day I asked her, 'Do you regret?' She looked at me and said, 'Never. But sometimes I think that our happiness cost too much.'" Alex looked at Anna, and his gaze was full of tenderness and longing. "We were happy, but it was a complicated happiness. We knew we had built our lives on the ruins, but every moment with her was worth everything." Anna felt that this story was about true love. Not perfect, but true, that goes through pain and sacrifice to find its place in the world. "And that was the most important thing," said Alex. "We had each other, even if the whole world was against us." Alex was silent for a moment, staring at the dying flames in the fireplace. His eyes seemed empty, as if he was looking into something dark and painful. Anna felt the air grow heavier, as if the next part of his story was about to change everything. "I thought Elisa and I could put the past behind us," Alex began, his voice trailing off. "But the past will always find a way to return. And this time, it did it in the most brutal way." Anna held her breath, feeling that the next words would be like a blow. "It was a normal morning," Alex continued. "Elisa and I had breakfast in the garden. The sun was just rising, and everything seemed perfect. Suddenly the doorbell rang. He paused as if reliving the moment. It was a postman. He handed me the envelope. No return addressee, just my name." "What was in the letter?" Anna asked cautiously. Alex sighed as if the words still hurt him. It was a letter from Raoul's friend. In it, he wrote that Raoul had committed suicide. Anna felt her heart sink. "What happened?" "He was found in his apartment," Alex said, his voice barely audible. The letter next to him explained everything. He wrote that he could no longer live with the feeling of betrayal, that he loved Elisa with all his heart, and her departure destroyed him. "I couldn't hide it from Elisa," Alex said. "I handed her the letter, and she read it, sitting in the same place where we planned our future." Anna saw how he clenched his hands. She started to cry. But it wasn't just tears. It was as if her soul had been shattered into pieces. She said, "It's my fault. I ruined his life." "And you?" Anna asked, afraid to hear the answer. "I told her it wasn't," Alex replied. "But deep down, I also felt guilty. Raoul was my friend, the person who was there in the darkest moments of my life. And I betrayed him. After that, something changed between us," Alex continued. "We could no longer look at each other without the shadow of this pain." Elisa began to move away. She sat for hours in silence, looking out the window. Anna felt her heart sink at these words. One day, she said to me, "Alex, I can't do it anymore. This love we fought for has become poison. We lost what was between us." His voice trailed off, and he lowered his head. "She left me after a few weeks. She said she was going to another country to start anew, and I let her go. After she left, I was all alone," Alex said, his voice sounding like an echo. "I couldn't play anymore. Every tune reminded me of them both, about what I lost." Anna remained silent, feeling that any word could destroy this fragile moment. "They were both a part of me," Alex continued, "and now they are gone. Sometimes I think this is a punishment I deserve." The silence in the room was heavy, and Anna felt tears welling up in her eyes. Alex was left alone, lost in a world that was once filled with love and friendship. "And yet I continue to live," he said, looking at Anna. "But sometimes it seems to me that I'm only a shadow of what I was." His words left a mark in her soul that she will not be able to erase. Alex's story was far from over, but now she knew that this journey wasn't just his. It was something more, a search for meaning in a world where love and loss go hand in hand. Anna was silent as she listened to Alex talk about his pain and loneliness after losing Elisa and Raoul. She understood that his story was filled not only with love, but also with the struggle for forgiveness, to others and to himself. But when he continued to speak, she didn't expect what she heard. "I didn't know anything about her for a while," Alex began, his voice low but calm. "She disappeared, leaving me with my thoughts and memories. But a few months later, I found out that she didn't just run away. She chose a path that distanced her from me forever." Anna leaned forward, keeping her eyes on his face. "What do you mean?" Alex sighed deeply and continued. "She went to the monastery." "How did you find out?" Anna asked, shocked. "A letter from her sister," Alex answered. In it, she wrote that Elisa took refuge in a monastery in a small village in the south of France. She decided to devote her life to prayer and service to others. His voice grew quiet and his eyes darkened. I couldn't believe it. Elisa was always so alive, so passionate. I could not imagine that she would voluntarily give up everything she loved, her life, from me. "Did you go to see her?" Anna asked, holding her breath. Alex nodded. "Yes. I couldn't leave it unanswered. I went to that monastery. It was a quiet, peaceful place, surrounded by fields and old trees. When I saw her for the first time after everything that happened, I couldn't speak." Anna imagined the scene. Alex standing in front of the monastery and Elisa in plain clothes coming out to him. She looked like she had found peace, but I saw in her eyes the same thing I felt myself, a pain that couldn't be taken away. "What did she say?" Anna asked quietly. "She said she couldn't go on living the life we built on Raoul's ruins," Alex replied. "That she did not come here to escape, but to find peace and forgiveness." His voice trembled. I asked her if she still loved me. She looked into my eyes and said, "Yes, but this love no longer belongs to this world." Anna felt her eyes fill with tears. "Those were the hardest words I've ever heard," Alex continued. "But I understood that she made her choice, and I couldn't hold her. We spent a few hours together," Alex said, his voice becoming even quieter. "She told me about her new path, about how prayer helps her find peace. But in her voice, I felt something she didn't say, longing for what we had lost." He paused as if trying to collect his thoughts. "When it was time to say goodbye, I told her that I would always love her. She did not answer, only hugged me and went back to the monastery." Anna felt her heart sink at these words. Alex looked at Anna, and his eyes were full of longing. "She found her peace, but I'm still looking for mine. Sometimes I think her choice was the right one. But at the same time, I can't shake the feeling that I lost a part of my soul that day." The silence in the room became almost unbearable. Anna felt this story deeply rooted in her heart. Alex continued to live with his pain, but his story was a testament to the fact that even the most difficult love leaves a mark that never goes away. Autumn covered the city with a thick haze, and Alex sat by the window of his house, listening to how the wind played with the fallen leaves. It was on this day that he received the news that changed his life forever. "It was a normal morning," Alex began, his voice heavy. "The postman brought the envelope, and I immediately recognized the handwriting. It was Elisa's sister. I haven't seen her words in years." Anna felt her heart tighten with anticipation. The letter contained only a few sentences. She wrote that Elisa was seriously ill, that she is almost unable to move, but refuses to leave the monastery, and that she wants to see me one last time. His voice trembled, and Anna saw him look away, as if seeing the letter in front of him again. "I immediately set off," continued Alex. "The monastery was located in a remote village among the mountains. I remembered this path, but this time it seemed endless." He paused, recalling every detail of this trip. "When I arrived, the sisters greeted me warmly, but I could see a shadow of sadness in their eyes. They said Elisa was waiting for me." Anna held her breath as she imagined Alex entering the monastery that was the last refuge for the woman he loved. "Her room was plain," Alex said, his voice barely audible in the silence. "She was lying on the bed, and I barely recognized her. She was weak, but her eyes, they still shone." Anna could see him trying to pull himself together to continue. "She smiled when she saw me. Her voice was weak, but she said, 'Alex, I knew you would come.'" His eyes filled with tears. I held her hand and we talked about everything, about our past, about what we lost, and about what we still found in each other. She told me, "I don't regret my choice, Alex, but if life gave me another chance, I would live it with you." Anna felt her own eyes fill with tears. "She asked me not to be sad," said Alex. She said, "You were always my light, even when the world seemed dark, and I want you to continue to shine." She died the next morning, Alex continued, his voice barely audible in the silence. Her face was calm, and her hands were folded on her chest. I sat next to her until the very end. He fell silent, as if the memory of the moment was too painful. The sisters of the monastery said that she prayed for me until the last day, that her faith was unbreakable, and that she found peace in her choice. Anna was silent, not knowing what to say. Alex lifted his head, and she saw something more than sadness in his eyes. "She's gone, but she's left me with memories that will never fade," he said. "Sometimes I think that she was the part of me that always pointed the right way." He paused, then added, "Her love was my last song, and I keep playing it for her, even though she can't hear it anymore." Anna understood that this story was not only about loss, but also about an unbreakable bond between two souls that cannot be broken even by time or death. Anna silently looked at Alex, feeling how his story touches the deepest corners of her soul. His words about Elisa's death left a heaviness in the air that wouldn't go away. Alex ran a hand through his hair, as if trying to collect his thoughts before continuing. "After her death, everything changed," he said. "As if the world had lost its color. Everything that seemed important before became empty." Anna saw his hands clenched into fists, and his gaze wandered around the room. "How did you live on?" she asked, afraid to hear the answer. "I went back to Paris, but it wasn't my home anymore," Alex continued. "The city, which before seemed alive to me, was now only a shadow of what I remembered. I immersed myself in the music, as if trying to hide from the pain." His voice became a little harder, but vulnerable at the same time. "I wrote at night, played until morning, but every note, every melody reminded me of her. She was in everything, in every chord, in every pause." Anna felt his words move her to tears. "People have said that my music has become more emotional, more profound, but they did not understand that it was not a talent. It is a pain that I could not express otherwise." "I traveled a lot in those years," said Alex. "Played in the best halls in the world, met thousands of people, but I never felt like I belonged in that world." Anna asked, "Have you tried to find someone else?" Alex shook his head. "Love for Eliza was my only true feeling. All other connections seemed superficial, unreal. How can you replace something that has become part of your soul?" "Sometimes I go back to that monastery," Alex admitted. "They allowed me to plant a tree in her honor. Now it is big, its branches reach to the sky." He paused, as if imagining this tree in front of him. "I come there, sit under it, and play for her. I know it sounds silly, but it's the only place I feel her presence." Anna saw his eyes fill with warmth, though there was still a shadow of pain in them. "Her death taught me that life is never what you expect it to be," Alex said. "We think we can control him, but this is an illusion. All we can do is live while we can and appreciate the moments we are given." His words sounded like a confession, deep and honest. "Sometimes I think she was the one who gave me meaning," he continued. "But now I understand that she wanted me to find this meaning on my own." Alex looked at Anna, his gaze calm but deep. "She's gone, but she's still here," he said, placing his hand over his heart. "And as long as I play, as long as I live, she will always be a part of me." Anna was silent, feeling his words touch something in her own soul. Alex didn't just survive the loss, he learned to live with it, turning his pain into a part of his music and his identity. His story was not only about love and loss, it was about the strength of the human spirit, which finds meaning even in the darkest moments of life. Anna sat in a cozy room, listening to Alex tell his story. His words were like music, deep, penetrating, and unforgettable. She felt how each of his phrases revealed something new, not only about him, but also about herself. She had long since stopped thinking of Alex as just the hero of her article. It was much bigger. His story, his voice, even his silence. It was all so real, so alive. And it touched her heart more than she could have imagined. "You're an incredible person, Alex," Anna said, unable to hold back her words. Alex smiled, but his smile was soft, almost shy. "No, I'm just someone who lives with his pain," he replied. But if my story can inspire you, then maybe it makes sense. These words touched her. She couldn't figure out exactly when it happened, but something in her heart began to change. Anna began to see in him not only a person who had gone through losses, but also someone who could understand her better than anyone else. His honesty, his strength, and even his weakness all fascinated her. Later that evening, they sat by the fireplace, drinking tea and watching the flames dance in silence. Anna felt this silence taking on a new meaning. It wasn't an empty silence, but something more, a connection she couldn't explain. "Alex, have you ever thought about starting over again?" she asked suddenly. He looked at her, slightly surprised by her question. "Start over?" he repeated. "I thought about it. But every time I tried, the past came back and reminded me of who I am." "What if someone helps you?" she said quietly, almost in a whisper. Her words hung in the air, and Alex said nothing for a moment. His gaze was attentive, as if he was trying to understand what she really meant. Anna felt her heart beat faster. She began to doubt what she felt. Is it real? Is it simply the influence of his history, his charm? She tried to hide her emotions by looking away. But Alex seems to have noticed. "You are very kind to me, Anna," he said, his voice warm. "But I'm not sure I deserve your concern." "Why?" Her voice trembled. "Why do you think you don't deserve it?" Alex smiled, but it was a sad smile. "Because the people I loved always suffered because of me." Anna looked at him, and her eyes filled with determination. "But you didn't make them suffer, Alex," she said. "You just lived as best you could and did everything in your power. And I think you deserve happiness, even if you don't believe it yourself." Her words seemed so sincere that Alex fell silent for a moment. He looked at her as if he was seeing the real Anna for the first time. "You are a special person, Anna," he finally said. These words left a warm trace in her heart, and she realized that she could no longer deny her feelings. She fell in love with him, even if it was difficult, even if it was wrong. That evening, Anna did not sleep, lying in bed and staring at the ceiling. Her thoughts revolved around Alex, his words, his eyes, his pain. She understood that it was more than just sympathy or admiration. She fell in love. But was he ready to accept it? And could she be the one to help him find himself again? These questions remained unanswered, but she knew that the next chapter of their story began here and now. It was a calm day, but a storm was raging inside Alex. With each conversation with Anna, he experienced something new. Her sincerity, her warmth, and the directness with which she touched his soul made his heart beat faster. He couldn't help but notice how she was looking at him, how carefully she was listening to his every word. And he understood. Anna also feels this connection. Alex tried not to let himself think about it. The past held him like a heavy anchor. He believed that his time for love had already passed. But every day his thoughts about Anna became stronger. "How can I let someone into my heart again?" he asked himself quietly before falling asleep. He lay down on the bed, but sleep did not come. Memories of Elisa and thoughts of Anna merged into one endless stream. Finally, exhausted, he fell asleep. In a dream, Alex found himself in the garden of the monastery, where a tree was growing, which he planted in honor of Elisa. The sun illuminated the earth, and the wind gently swayed the branches. He heard a familiar voice behind him. "Alex." He turned and saw her. Elisa stood in the light, her face radiating a calm he had never seen before. "Elisa," he whispered. She came closer and put her hand on his shoulder. "I came to tell you something," she said. Her voice was as warm and gentle as ever. "You have to stop living in the past." Alex shook his head, not believing his ears. "But how?" he asked. "How can I leave all this behind?" Elisa smiled, and her eyes lit up with warmth. "Life goes on, Alex, and you deserve happiness. Anna is your present. She's around for a reason. Let me go and let yourself love again." Her words hit him right in the heart. He felt a heavy weight begin to lift from his shoulders. "Do you really want this for me?" he asked, his voice shaking. "Yes," she replied, smiling. "My love will always be with you, but now you have to find your own way." Alex woke up early in the morning when the first rays of the sun touched his face. The dream seemed so real that he could still feel the warmth of Elisa's hand on his shoulder. He sat on the bed, trying to collect his thoughts. Her words echoed in his head. "Anna is your present." It was a sign, he whispered. Alex realized that Eliza had given him permission to move on. Her blessing became the point that broke the chains of his pain. That day, Alex went for a walk with Anna. She was, as always, sincere and bright. Her laughter sounded like a melody to him, and he found it easier to breathe next to her. Anna looked up at him and asked, "Are you different today, Alex?" "What happened?" He smiled, for the first time truly, without a hint of sadness. "I think I realized it's time to let go of the past," he said. "And it's time to give yourself a chance at a new life." Anna was surprised, but her eyes shone with joy. She didn't know what had caused this change, but she sensed that Alex was no longer running away from his feelings. Alex stopped and looked at Anna. At that moment, he realized that his heart was no longer burdened by memories. He was ready to move on. And now that Eliza had blessed him, he felt he could find happiness again. Anna became for him not only a friend, but also a person who was able to restore his faith in love. And he was ready to take the first step towards this new feeling. 2 years have passed since Alex decided to leave the past behind and open his heart to Anna. Their relationship developed slowly, but every moment was full of tenderness and trust. Anna became the light that filled his life with warmth that he had lost a long time ago. It was an ordinary evening. Alex invited Anna to his house, saying he wanted to show her a new tune he wrote. Anna entered the room and saw a grand piano decorated with candles. The air was filled with a magical melody that Alex played on his favorite keys. He looked at her, his eyes full of tenderness. "This tune is about you," he said when he finished playing. Anna smiled in surprise, but her surprise only grew when Alex stood up and took out a small velvet box. "Anna," he began, getting down on one knee, "you changed my life. You helped me find myself, and I want to spend the rest of my life with you. Will you marry me?" Anna could not hold back her tears. She nodded and whispered, "Yes, Alex, yes." Their wedding took place in the garden of the same monastery, where Alex planted a tree in Eliza's honor. He knew that this place symbolized not only loss, but also a new beginning. Among the guests were only the closest people, Alex's friends, Anna's family, and even a few sisters of the monastery who knew his story. Anna was in a white dress, decorated with simple lace, which reminded of the lightness of her soul. Alex stood beside her, holding her hand, and felt his heart fill with peace. "Are you happy?" she asked quietly before they said their vows. "I'm happier than ever," he replied, looking into her eyes. After the wedding, Alex and Anna settled in a small house on the outskirts of Paris. They worked together on new projects. Alex wrote music, and Anna inspired him with her presence. Alex returned to the stage, but now his music sounded different. She was full of love, light, and hope. Each concert became another opportunity for him to share his emotions with those who listened. Anna, who was always there, became his main support. Her smile was what helped him through the hardest days, and her voice was the melody that always played in his heart. One day, returning from a walk, Alex and Anna decided to stop by the monastery. They sat down under the tree that Alex had planted in Eliza's honor. "Thank you for bringing me here," Alex said, as he looked up at the branches reaching up to the sky. Anna hugged him and quietly answered, "I'm sure Eliza would be proud of you, and she would be happy to know that you found your happiness." Alex nodded, his heart filled with gratitude. "I found him," he said, looking at Anna. Alex's story was a story of loss, love, and rebirth. But now he knew that life goes on, and even the deepest wounds can heal if someone is there to help find the way to the light. Anna became his new chapter, his inspiration and his love. Their life wasn't perfect, but it was real, full of music, love, and memories that were now theirs alone.